After a 3-game trip out west, the Indiana Fever were back home Tuesday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, continuing a stretch of 11 games in less than 3 weeks. It's a very difficult schedule, playing more games than any other team in the league thus far, and that will continue for at least another week. They got to get to next week. Tonight, they began a stretch of 4 games in 6 days, 3 at home, and then 1 over the weekend on the road up in New York. They were facing the LA Sparks for the second time in 3 games, and the Sparks won the first and fourth quarters. Ultimately, the Fever suffering an 88-82 loss, dropping them to 1-7 on the season. The one win was over the weekend at LA. Now, there was a good crowd on hand once again, as you would expect, and it included 3 Pacers guards, including Tyrese Haliburton, Andrew Nembhard, and Bennedict Mathurin, who sat in row 2, opposite side of the Indiana Fever bench. It also included some former Colts with T.Y. Hilton and Shaq Leonard, also Nick Cross in the building, part of that great crowd, especially for a Tuesday night right here at the Fieldhouse. Now, the Fever trailed by 5 at the half, but they got off to a great start in the second half. 11 straight points had prompted a timeout from Coach Miller and the LA Sparks, and then they laid the hammer on the Fever. 28-8 burst from the LA Sparks that allowed them to take the lead for good. They shot so well in this game from 3-point range, set a season high in threes with 14 of 23 shooting. That's a 61% clip, and it was a combination of the Fever defense as well as just hot shooting. Here's what they had to say about that run after the game.
I think they scored 11 points in less than 2 minutes, so it's just like one thing just led to another, and that seems like to be an issue for us. It's like we can never really stop the bleeding, and it's just too much to come back from. I think that was huge where they put 11 points together right there. We played good defense, honestly, through the entire third. Had held them to 11 points, and they put 11 points on us really quick, and it seemed like a lot of it was in transition, but then obviously the fourth was just, overall team defense was just bad.
What we were doing early to them defensively in our schemes, we stopped doing in the second half, especially during that stretch. I mean, 60% from the 3, you don't give yourself a chance. If you let somebody shoot, they have 42 points in threes. I mean, you don't give yourself a chance.
Now, Caitlin Clark finished with a career-high 30 points. Yeah, career-high. It's very early into that young career as she continues to add to what she's able to accomplish, but easily was the best player and most productive out on the floor tonight. Also included 10 free throws in that combination, along with 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks as well, but along with 7 turnovers. So a lot of highs, but also some things to work on, especially those turnovers, which will come in time with rest, with on-court chemistry, I think with her teammates a lot more, and for her to improving the way in which she reads the opposing defenses and gets to know these teams much better. You spend 4 years in college, now you move on into the pros. But like I said, not only did she find success on the offensive end, what also stood out to me more than anything were those steals and those 3 blocks in particular.
Yeah, I think my defense has improved quite a bit. People probably pick on my defense quite a bit, and there's times where it's good and there's times where I'm still learning and growing. Like a couple times where I let Nurse get open for a couple threes that just can't happen, but those are situations that I'm still trying to learn and grow in. I think my help side defense has become a lot better, and I think just like reading and understanding what the other team wants to do with the ball has led me to get some steals and stuff. So I think just being active, and I think the more active I am on defense, that helps me play better offense. So definitely a goal for me coming into these games.
It was also good to see a productive game, especially towards the end, from Aliyah Boston, 17.6 rebounds in 24 minutes. It was interesting post-game as she had an extended conversation with the crew chief on the officiating, just wanted to get clarification about consistency of calls and what she can do and other opponents can do. You don't see that very often, but I thought both sides handled that professionally and allowed for a conversation post-game.
I just feel like sometimes I get certain calls on like my positioning, and I was trying to ask some questions about LA. They were kind of doing the same thing, and I was trying to figure out how sometimes I get those fouls, or like why didn't we get those fouls tonight. because, you know, you're battling and it gets frustrating when there's like certain things for you, and then so it's just little balance we're trying to figure out. But Isaac was pretty nice to just stay and talk to me after.
By the way, Aaliyah discussed her rocky start to the season. It hadn't got off to as good a start, of course, as she would like. And I also had to, of course, ask her about knocking down both of her three-point attempts.
I don't think it's been great for me at all. Honestly, I think I've had a pretty rough start from what I'm used to, or even what I did last year. But I think what's important for me is that I just keep my mental good. Like, I'm just focusing on showing up each and every day, just continue to do what the team needs. And I think it's going to fall. Like, I'm going to be able to see it. And I think these past 2 games have been better for me when it comes to just finishing around the basket, just being a great teammate. But, I mean, it's been a rough start, but blessed that we have more games to go.
Saw you a couple times feel comfortable take that 3 with confidence. We're going to see more of that maybe this season, you hope?
See how the cookie crumbles, I guess. I'll see if I mean, it's just, I'm just glad I was able to take them and knock them down tonight. But I mean, it's just understanding when and where, and so that was what it was tonight.
Now, Clark and Boston both finished with 12 points in the fourth quarter as the Fever tried to make a late run. They combined for 24 of the Fever's 27 points in that quarter. Christy Wallace, the other basket, that was a three-pointer. But ultimately, the three-point shooting, the high-efficiency scoring for the LA Sparks was too costly. The Fever did not get the defensive stops that they needed throughout the game. And the Fever also didn't get much production from their bench as well. They contributed just 9 points here tonight in the loss, and they kept turnovers to a number that is reasonable, just 14. And despite winning the game, the LA Sparks turned it over 20 times. Now the Fever will turn their attention back to the film of this game on Wednesday, use that as a development day, get shots up, and that sort of thing. But right now they haven't had much time for any real practices, physical practices, given the grueling stretch of their schedule. And then on Thursday, they're in action once again, hosting the Seattle Storm on Thursday at 7 p.m. Again, that'll be their second time facing the Storm. So that will be game 9 for them of the season, which is a lot in less than 3 weeks, and easily the most of any team out there, as most have played about 5 games to this point. But what's also even more interesting to me in all of this is the fact that among that group, they faced the same team 4 times amongst that bunch. And so a lot of repetitive matchups. And then to wrap up this brutal schedule on the road on Sunday, for this young team, which makes it even more trying, they go on the road to New York for the second time already this season and face the Liberty already for the 3rd time this season. So it's a crazy schedule, and here's in part what Coach Christy Sides had to say about this grueling stretch of the season that they're just trying to get through.
Yeah, just trying to manage minutes. I mean, that's, we've had to do that since we started with playing every other day. So it's just, it's just been trying to figure it out along the way. I know that's a terrible answer, but I mean, when you don't have any other way to do it, but in the moment, it's other people stepping up to do things that they're not used to. Erica Wheeler coming off the bench is something that she's had to get used to. And then just trying to find ways to use timeouts and use, quarter breaks to give them some extra rest as well.
So the Fever are expecting another great crowd Thursday night, the Seattle Storm in town. That includes former Fever player Ebony Hoffman, who's on the coaching staff for the Storm, as well as a personal favorite, equipment manager Drew Stanich, a former ball boy with me for the team as well. Another loss for the Indiana Fever, a lot of positives, but also plenty for them to improve upon. Reporting from Gainbridge Fieldhouse, I'm Scott Agness of FieldhouseFiles.com.